Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
She talked about this being the most open and transparent rule ever. Maybe the gentlelady can share with us the secret 3-page addendum that we're reading about, because none of us have seen it. So much for transparency. I guess she's not going to share that with us.
Okay, so this was Jim McGovern. He's a Democrat from Massachusetts who stood up on the floor last night and said that the rules document, that the backroom deal that was made has, the rules document is public, but there are 3 pages of the rules document that have not been made public. 3 pages that have been circulating amongst the Republican members, but will not be published, and they can't show it to anybody on the other side of the aisle. So much for transparency. These front-running phonies, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. When Marjorie Taylor Greene is the truth teller in the scenario, then something has gone horribly awry. Something is so wrong, and it's true. So the newspaper is reporting that there is a 3-page secret document that's an addendum to the House rules that they voted on last night, and nobody knows what those 3 pages say.
Perhaps it is the case that secret rules riders documents exist in all Congresses, and I'm just making a big deal about this now, but you're shaking your head. Have you ever done one of these before?
Well, first of all, it's good to be with you. No, when I proposed the rules package, there was nothing that was secret. There were no backroom deals. And in fact, my rules package actually had some Republican support. So I'm anxious, just like you are, to find out what is in this secret document. I mean, the rules package that we voted on tonight was bad enough. It was a total giveaway to the most extreme elements of the Republican conference. But clearly it wasn't enough to win those votes over. I mean, we went through 4 days and 15 votes before Kevin McCarthy became Speaker. So there are a lot of goodies in that addendum, and I asked repeatedly on the House floor of my Republican colleagues, tell me what you got. Show us the addendum. And look, and it's not just bad that he negotiated this secret backroom deal in the dead of night, but what's even worse is who he negotiated it with. The people who represent the most fringe elements of the Republican conference, the people who are election deniers. They did not succeed in stealing the 2020 election, but they did effectively succeed in stealing the Speaker's office from Kevin McCarthy. He may have the office, but they have the power.
It's so disgusting what happened. And so all of a sudden, you see things like, the guy who, was so incensed that he told Matt Gaetz, you're finished, right? Mike Rogers from Alabama, had to be restrained from choking out Matt Gaetz on Friday night. So all of a sudden, he's not on the all-important steering committee anymore. And yesterday, they released that news. Mike Rogers is stepping aside. He's stepping down from the all-important steering committee that picks the members to be on various committees. He's no longer going to have that role. And now today, we find out that Byron Donalds from Florida, a guy who won exactly 1 election, well, now two elections, okay? He was a freshman, and now he's, in his second term, right? He, as a congressman from Florida, is now going to replace Mike Rogers on the steering committee. What is in those 3 pages? What is in that document that we can't see? I'll tell you what I can see. Is so vile that it's hard to imagine what they had to hide from us. I don't know if you know this. They'll tell you, oh, this is process. This is deep in the weeds. No one cares about this. Everyone cares about this because when you call it the Holman rule, nobody cares about it. But when you explain that the Holman rule, which they put in their rules package, allows for Congress to vote to stop the salary of any federal employee that they want to retaliate against, then you understand that it's blackmail. And that is in there. That is something that's in there. Now, last night, A couple of people stood up. Richie Torres, who's a young new guy from New York, he stood up and he pointed out the Holman rule is going to be used as a weapon against anybody that the Republicans want to retaliate against.
House Republicans decry the weaponization of the federal government.
Right.
Yet the Holman rule would enable the federal government to be weaponized against any federal official who draws the wrath of the Republican majority.
Right.
The Holman rule would enable House Republicans to zero out funding for a criminal investigation into Donald Trump.
Oh.
The new rules would defund the Office of Congressional Ethics. The new rules would enable a member being investigated by the FBI to investigate the investigators investigating him. Mr. Speaker, so much for draining the swamp.
Seriously, dude. And so today, Richie Torres and Dan Goldman, who, was a special prosecutor who won his race in New York, they went to the office of George Santos and they told George Santos that they are asking the ethics committee, as it is, to investigate him, to investigate Santos for, campaign finance violations for, because he lent himself $700,000, claiming that, and he lives with his sister. And he won't, disclose who the $700,000 came from. But anyway, the Holman rule. This is something that's going to rear its ugly little head, okay? This is a way to blackmail anybody or to defund the FBI, to defund the Attorney General of the United States, to defund Jack Smith, the special prosecutor who is investigating Donald Trump. You see, this is something that they voted on last night, and it freaking passed along party lines.
There's an aspect of the rules that were voted on today and passed, and every Democrat voted against, which would allow in spending bills to sort of really micro-target, like even individual federal employees, whether their salary or specific programs. And I just, how important do you think that is? I know they're very excited about it. I know lots of Democrats are warning about it. How important is that rule? How new is that?
Yeah, well, if a employee in a federal agency writes a report, that the Freedom Caucus doesn't like, they'll go after that employee.
Right.
They've also formed this new committee, I guess, called the weaponization of the federal government. I call it the McCarthy Committee. It's not, and I'm not referring to Kevin McCarthy. I'm referring to Joe McCarthy. It is about threatening and individuals and agencies. It is about, smearing people. It is about intimidating people. The bottom line is what the Republicans have won in this rules package, really benefits the most extreme fringe elements of their caucus. And by the way, they also paved the way to bring up a number of bills under closed rules that will make it easier for polluters to pollute, that will actually increase the deficit by $115 billion, stuff that will, again, as you mentioned, go after individual federal employees. It is a mess.
It is a mess, and it's blackmail, and this is the tool that they're going to use to target people who write reports or who investigate Scott Perry or investigate Donald Trump or investigate Lindsey Graham or anybody that investigates and finds evidence of crimes. They will defund them. They will literally take their salary from them or defund, the office of the special prosecutor, the office of the Attorney General, the FBI. This is what they ran on. Defund the FBI. This is how they're going to do it. Everybody was sitting there going, well, how would they do such a thing? Well, it's just a simple little rule. It's called the Holman, Holman. Go look it up, the Holman rule. And they passed it last night along party lines. The other thing that they did was they defunded the Office of Congressional Ethics, which is something I told you they were going to do. And they did do it last night. They actually did. They limited the people who could be on the board of the Office of Congressional Ethics, called the OCE. They also stopped them from being able to hire any new staff, so that this office that is tasked with investigating lawmakers cannot function. They've hobbled it. They literally cut its legs out from under it. The other thing they did last night, which I alluded to at the beginning of the show, which you need to make a note of, is that they defunded the IRS, okay? Or the House voted to defund the IRS, to be completely, truthful about what happened last night. The House voted to defund the Internal Revenue Service, okay? And the reason they did it was in spite of the fact that the Office of Management and Budget told the Republicans that it would add $114 billion to the United States deficit by hobbling the IRS from being able to do its work to collect tax dollars that are owed by people who file complex taxes like a Donald Trump. And even though they knew that, even though they had that figure, even though they were told it would cost us and add to the deficit to the tune of $114 billion, they went ahead and voted to do that. Buckle up, everybody. This is just the beginning of the 118th thieving thug-like Congress. O'Dre has nothing on MTG. Nothing. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to randyrhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.